I want to thank Morgan Mallory from Langston and Rosetta Upshaw from BWL for putting on this event this evening. I mean, this is just so amazing. I will tell you, when I was president-elect of Langston last year, Judge Webster told me that one of the first people I definitely need to talk to was Judge Morrow. And Judge Morrow invited me into his home and started telling me about the history of Langston, which obviously led into the history of BWL and other organizations. And after that meeting, I said to myself, this is something that we all need to know about. We all need to learn about. Because the history of black organizations in Los Angeles is our history, it's black history, it's California's history. And so I am so proud and so honored to have this distinguished panel before us today to talk to us about our history and to be able to share this moment with so many of our other organizations here in Los Angeles. So thank you all so much for coming out. I am so excited about this and really looking forward to hearing all the great knowledge that we have from our elder and wise members before us. So thank you all so much.
Isn't Byron such a great speaker? Yeah. He's such a good storyteller. I always find myself listening intently to him. I really don't have much to add. I'll echo everything that he said. I'm so excited to hear from all of these esteemed panelists. I'm Tara Doss, the president of Black Women Lawyers Association. And we're honored to participate in this event with the other Black Bar Associations involved. And I too look forward to hearing from everyone and hope you all enjoy the remarks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Damon Brown. I'm the president of the California Association of Black Lawyers. Our affiliates, BWL and Langston, for inviting us to participate in this much needed and timely event. I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege because they're going to tell you all about cable. I don't have to say anything about cable, but I am going to promote the upcoming cable conference because it would be a missed opportunity if I didn't do so. And I'm hoping that everyone here will support cable in attending our annual conference. It's going to be here in Los Angeles at the JW Marriott, where Byron and Valerie just put on a fabulous, incredible, humongous installation that was wildly successful. And we're going to be here April 18th through the 20th. We've got a lot of great events sponsored. The website just went live today. If you log on to cable42.com, you can get an itinerary of everything, find out about sponsorship opportunities and ticket purchasing. We hope everyone will come and support. One of our honorees is here tonight. The recipient of the Bernard Jefferson Judge of the Year Award will be given to Judge Bobby Tillman. So we are excited to be able to honor her with this award that she is so deserving of. We'll be honoring cable legends and power couples at the President's Reception on Friday night, of which we will honor the great Shirley Henderson, as well as Judge Alan Webster and Maggie Webster. So we're hoping that everyone will come out and support. Please log on to the website. And I think that ends my pitch, and I'm going to turn it over to our recipient, Judge Bobby Tillman.
Good evening, everyone. We're happy to see you here. I want you to take a look at those banners. That's historic right there, that those banners are side by side, which is representative of the cooperation between all of our organizations. I am the first president of the Association of, it's a long name, African American California Judicial Officers. We call it AAA CJO because it's much easier to articulate. But anyway, it's my privilege to serve as the first president of the organization. We are not a bar association. We are also new. We were incorporated in 2017. Judge Webster is going to speak about the reason why we feel creating this organization is so important. So I'll let him do that. But again, I too want to welcome everyone to be present tonight to enjoy the program. So thank you.
So before we start,
Gotta handle business first. Before we start, just on behalf of Rosetta and myself, we just wanted to thank all of you for being here. We are so excited about this event. Thank you for this great turnout, for coming out in the rain. And without further adu, I just wanted to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Ms. Shirley Henderson, Judge Irma Brown, Judge Veronica Macbeth, Judge John Metz, Judge Dion Morrow, and Judge Alan Webster. And we'll hear a little bit about why, but we were very interested in the formation of these organizations, some of the first leaders, which all of these individuals were, of Langston, Cable, BWL, and the newest organization, AAA, CJO. But part of why we wanted to include is obviously Cable, Langston, BWL were all formed some time ago. And I find it interesting that even now in 2019, we still need to be forming new organizations so that us as African American lawyers and judges can be together, bond, and work together. So here we are for a little bit of it. Miss Shirley has brought with her history. She has photos. If y'all can't see, all these things were in her garage, so I'm sure we'll hear about the significance of what she has. And did you want to say anything?
You said it all.
Okay. So without further ado, we're going to start. We just have we're going to do a question and answer style. So, yeah, I have a lot. I'm never going to keep being quiet. My mom can tell you. So, we just wanted to start with some questions for our panelists. Some we're going to ask of all of them, especially the beginning questions, so we can get to know our esteemed panelists better. And then as we get to the end, we're just, like I said, interested in the formation of the organizations, why they were important and relevant then, and why they still need to exist and be around today for lawyers like Rosetta and myself. And law students in the audience, raise your hand. Oh, I know we have some.
have one.
There's one. The law students that we have. And I know we have some people who just passed the bar. Raise your hand. Going down the line, how would you, Ms. Henderson, describe your childhood? And what about that made you choose a career in the law?
Well, my childhood was, it's really interesting because when you're a kid, you don't know what your situation is because to you everything's fine as a child. So a lot of times when you get older and you reflect back upon it, you can see it wasn't as fine as you thought it was. But as I said, the family always tried to make you feel healthy. Well, we always felt feeling happy and all that kind of stuff. So, but we moved around a lot when I was a kid. My parents came in 1944, so they get jobs because of the war and all that good stuff. So I was raised, I started out in Compton a little bit, lived in Compton a little while. We kind of moved around a lot. And most of my childhood was in Dickerson Gardens. We moved there when they first opened up around the late 50s, so that's where I was raised. We had good times there. It was a totally different place than it is today. So yeah, so I was raised there pretty much. And so I always wanted to decide what I wanted to do. There was 7 of us, and so each one had our turn, as we called it. The oldest, so the money always went to the oldest, so they could graduate high school, get all the good stuff. So as one graduated, and the next person, it was their turn. So I was third, and I was my turn. So you always have to tell them what you're going to do in life, what you're going to do, what you're going to do, and all that kind of stuff. So I always looked around and said, what do we need for our people and our community? So I said, well, we need doctors, and since women at that time weren't going to be doctors, we had to be nurses. So it was nurses or lawyers because people got arrested, so you were sick. So those are the things that I remember stood out of my mind. So I always decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I knew right away that's what I wanted to be, and I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. And I'm celebrating my 44th year as a criminal defense attorney.
What about you? What informed or helped lead you to your path to law school and obviously beyond?
Well, it's interesting. I've known Shirley since high school. We went to high school together. Judge Meggs and I went to junior high school together. I tried my first case in front of Judge Morrow. And as well as Judge Macbeth and I have been friends since she was a law student. So it's really just kind of like a whole week for us to all be here together. And Judge Tillman, Judge Tillman, I was on the scholarship committee that reviewed her scholarship application when she was in law school. So, was it you? Okay, so I had a name like yours. So It was like Shirley, my childhood, we moved around a lot. I went to 9 elementary schools before I was in the 4th grade. And so my parents came here in 1936. They didn't necessarily have good jobs, but they had jobs. My mother and father worked as a couple. You're familiar with that expression, in service. She was a maid, he was a butler and chauffeur. So that was sort of the origin, and we moved around a lot. But school was something that was always very easy for me. I have a dear friend today, because I said we moved around, but we had a home that we had purchased, and so when things didn't work out on a move, we could always come back home after the tenants moved out. So she would say that I was so happy when you would move away, because then I could be the smartest one in class. And then whenever you came back, I had to go back to second place. So I say that to say that there's just something that you kind of know when you get it. I didn't know that I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and that's where I started out in college, but I went back to my high school, which was Jordan High School in Watts, in my, I guess my senior year of college to be an observer teacher, and it quickly became apparent that I needed to do something different, that I really wasn't cut out to be a teacher at that level. So I finished college and went to law school. But to back up a little bit, there were only 2 of us, so it was a little easier to navigate who was on first. And my brother was always on first, but he was on first one to get chastised when my dad didn't work. And so he probably saved me from taking the wrong path. And that path was represented when I was a commissioner. I became a commissioner back in 1982, and a lawyer of a disparate persuasion came into a chambers conference and wanted to know how it was that I was able to graduate from high school to college, having been raised in Watts and not be a teenage mother. So this was a conference that he was kind of on his school would always be my school in sports. So this was how he was going to negotiate his settlement for his client or his deal. Duh, it didn't happen like that. But anyway, the real reason, or one of the leading things, is my brother kind of was a juvenile delinquent, and maybe that's why I do juvenile delinquency today and have for the last 20 years. And at one point, you might recognize the name of Charles Lloyd, criminal defense attorney from back in the day. He represented my brother, and after I passed the bar, about 20, 30 years later from the time he had represented my brother, who is now retired and on the straight and narrow, had a lien on my parents' home for legal fees. I don't know if you all still do that in private practice today, but it was very common at that point that people did not have cash to pay criminal defense lawyers. So you took you signed a deed or a note, what was the term? Your promissory note or whatever, you put your house up. So he had a lien on my parents' home, and I was determined that after going into his office, looking at his Rolls Royce with the mink carpet and the plushness and all of those things, that I kind of like that lifestyle. Never quite got there, but it was just that it was still the community coming together to help each other. I mean, he needed to make a living, and we needed a good lawyer, so it all worked out well. And that was what sort of led me into the legal profession. And as I said, my brother's entry into the juvenile delinquency system sort of has fueled my passion to do the work that I do. And I am celebrating my 37th year on the bench.
Well, let's see. I grew up, I was born in San Diego, but my parents lived here. Both my mom and dad are from Louisiana, and my dad was in the military during the war, and after the war, he and his brothers and my mother's sisters, they were across the Atchafalaya River in 2 different cities. But my dad had all brothers, and my mother had brothers and sisters. They all knew each other and grew up. It was kind of incest, I guess, when they got married. But no, I'm kidding. They moved here to LA, and I was born in San Diego because most of the relatives were down there. And My parents, my dad worked in a factory and he was a foreman and my mother was a waitress. And they got divorced when I was 10. And we moved right around the corner from where we lived. And my dad moved back to San Diego with all the family. And my mother and I have a younger brother. My mom worked 2 jobs because she didn't want my brother and I to go to public school. I was raised a Catholic. I quit the Catholics over the Rumford Fair Housing Act, but well, that's another story. She sent me to good schools. There was one other black girl in my class from the 1st to the 8th grade. And then I went to a high school that had a few more black girls there. It was an all-girls school. I was pre-med. I wanted to go to medical school, and all the nuns who taught me science pushed me to go to medical school, and I had one that pushed me to think about law school, right? And I wasn't going to do that. And then in the 60s, all the protests came up, the civil rights protests, a lot of different things came up. And I started thinking about it, and when I started college, I still was pre-med, but about the 2nd year, I decided, you know, by then I was married, and the person I was married to was in his last year of medical school. Oh my God, do we want 2 doctors in a house? Well, he and I didn't even stay together that long, but anyway, Bobby, you know, my sister, she knows my history. Anyway, I decided to go to law school. I wanted to be a part of all the protests. I did not want to save sick people. I wanted to save the world, right? That was what I thought back in those days. And I went to law school for that purpose. I graduated in '75. I became a judge in 1981 after only practicing 5.5 years because Dano Spencer and Joan Dempsey Klein beat me up to put my application in because we couldn't get any women past the Ginny Commission because Candy Cooper used to say we're either dumb or stupid. Well, I was on the law review, and we hadn't done any trials. That was it. And I was a prosecutor. I did nothing but trials. So I got appointed very early in my career, 1981. I was pregnant with my 2nd daughter, and that's why. One of the things I've learned is you can't save the world. I did criminal for a long time, and then I was PJ of the whole court, and I did chaired a lot of statewide commissions and 2 national judges groups. But I went to work at the Court of Abused and Neglected Children because I was sitting there in criminal, and these kids would turn 18, and they'd raise in our system, they'd want me to send them to jail, and I kept saying, what the heck is going on over there? So after I finished being PJ, I decided to go over and see, and I found, we may talk about it a little more, there are things that I think you guys might not be aware of that are going on that you should be more aware of. And I'm talking about commercially, sexually exploited children, almost all Black and Latino, and that's the case on the court I sit in right now. All right. So,
Judge Meggs?
Well, my name is John Meggs, and I'm a retired Superior Court judge. I've been retired for about 5 years. I was born in Los Angeles. Actually, I was born in East Los Angeles at, I'm drawing a blank. White Memorial apparently had a clinic for low-income people, and that's why I was born there instead of the County General. But my dad came to Los Angeles in 1929 when he was 15 years old on a freight train from Oklahoma, and had a number of different jobs. He was here without any family. I can't imagine myself as a 15-year-old traveling across country on freight trains. In fact, my oldest son, when he's talked about his late grandfather, he thinks about all the things that could have happened to him, and he wouldn't have been here, nor would I. But he came to California seeking a better life, and he was drafted in the second draft call of World War II. He was 26 years old, and he actually lived on 58th in Compton when that was a white neighborhood. And he was one of 2 blacks that was registered at the draft board, and they had a segregated draft. The first draft call, there wasn't a levy for any blacks, and I think there were 5 whites. The second draft call, the levy was for 5 blacks, and there were only 2 of them, so he ended up going in the service. And while he was in the military, fortunately for us, he was stationed with one of my mother's cousins and her boyfriend. And the cousin didn't like the boyfriend and talked to my father about his cousin. And my mother had a number of sisters, and he talked the boyfriend into showing my father a picture of my mother because he wanted him to see what her sisters looked like, because he was going to try to set him up. So my dad started writing my mom, and by that, he was a slick California guy. She was a college student in Little Rock, and when he got to leave, he went to Little Rock, took her to the movies, and one thing led to that. About 6 months later, they eloped. They were married for about 4 months before she even told her parents. But my father shipped out to the South Pacific in 1944, shortly after my oldest brother was born. And after he came back, he brought my brother to California, where he had told my mother they could have a good life, that they had a good school system, their kids would be able to go to college and that sort of thing. So I'm the third of 7 children, and the first in the family to go to law school, although all of us went to college. And I was focused on engineering and got drafted when I was a senior at UCLA, went in the Army. Actually, I got married right before I got drafted, went in the Army, and ended up going to Austin Candidate School. I was a captain when I was sent to Vietnam, and it was actually while I was in the Army that I decided I wanted to be a lawyer rather than an engineer. So fortunately, I returned from Vietnam in one piece, and went back to a job in engineering. I worked in engineering up until I became a public defender. But I actually took a pay cut from being a building engineering inspector to become a deputy public defender. And of course, I was much older than most at that time because I had been in the military and had other experiences. But I always wanted to be a prosecutor. And when I finished law school and passed the bar, the district attorney's office had a hiring freeze. And Judge Marion Johnson, who isn't here tonight, but Judge Johnson was a deputy district attorney. Judge Bob Bowers, who was my best friend, I had been his dean of pledges when he pledged Kappa Alpha Psi. And I actually introduced him to his wife when I chaired our black and white committee, and I had to find dates for the court. So I think that's why I'm the god. Well, all of us are tied together. I'm the godfather to their oldest child. But Bob and I were jogging and literally ran into Marion Johnson, who was running. And Bob introduced me as his friend who was on the list to be hired in the district attorney's office, and Marion said, well, we've got a hiring freeze, they're talking about laying off, but the public defender's hiring. And I said, look, I didn't go to law school to represent criminals. Marion stopped in his tracks. Now, Marion was a retired LAPD lieutenant before before he became a lawyer. He gave me a 20-minute lecture about how important it was for both sides to have good representation. And because of that lecture, that was on a Saturday, that Monday I applied for a job at the public defender and started working for them 2 weeks later. Mary and I remain friends to this day. We went on the bench the same day, he as an elected judge, I as a commissioner in January 1989. And I realized once I went to the public defender's office that it was a better fit for me. And Shirley and I went to rival high schools. I went to Fremont, she went to Jordan. We met at UCLA where we were probably 2 of 20 non-athletes that lived on campus back in 1965. Irma and I went to junior high school together, but she and others from our junior high school, including my younger brother, went to Jordan. I think Kenneth graduated with you, didn't he? Were you summer 66?
Did he graduate?
He did graduate. That's another story. And then about 30 years later, he graduated from San Bernardino Valley State. But at any rate, he went to Jordan because he didn't want to be associated with any of his older brothers and sisters who had gone to Fremont because he didn't like people comparing him to his brothers and sisters. He was a different individual, but he was actually the person that was most responsible for me becoming a lawyer because when I was in the Army, I was stationed in Pasadena for about a year and a half before I went to Vietnam. And while I was stationed there, Kenneth got arrested. Basically, and I mean he was arrested some other times, but that was the time that he hadn't done anything wrong. He got arrested for malicious eyeballing. That was a crime back in 1968 and Watts. At any rate, because of that, I decided someone in our family of 7 needed to have some background in law to deal with things like that. And unfortunately for him, he got a good lawyer because my sister worked with the sister of this lawyer. And he took the case. My parents were out of town when this happened. They were going to pay him. He wouldn't allow my parents to pay him. He said Kenneth was going to pay him. He got Kenneth a job. He got the case dismissed. And but that was what inspired me to go to law school. But Irma, I've known since junior high school. I was assigned to Judge Macbeth's court when she was the calendar judge in Division 40. She went to St. Mary's Academy with my wife. And my wife, the first time she saw her, she says, you know, that looks just like someone I went to high school with. And she was Vicki Simmons Macbeth, and she said that her name was Veronica Jackson. So we found out that they were the same person. But that shows how intertwined our community was. And Alan Webster, who will talk to you in a moment.
If he gets a chance.
Alan Webster was treasurer of Langston for I think about 7 or 8 years. When I became a lawyer, I wanted to join Langston, and I went on a search and found out that he was the treasurer. I found out where his office was. I went to his office to get an envelope to pay dues. And once Alan moved from treasurer to president, he had a way of getting you involved. He would call you and tell you, look, there's this important meeting Saturday. I can't make it to the meeting, but go. And, this was with the that for a lot of us, and that's how we got involved in core activities.
Thank you.
Okay, my uncles were lawyers.
Okay.
I admired them. One of my uncles was president of the NAACP for about 20 years. He became the second black judge in the western part of the United States. He was the first black judge to become presiding judge of the court. He was presiding judge in the municipal court. He also ran for the Superior Court and was elected. He was the first black person to win a county-wide election in the state of California. I went, and those were days when they tested us a lot. And every test I took said that I should be a lawyer. So I always planned to be a lawyer. Period. I never thought of anything else. I don't know, how much time do I have?
Well, we're gonna come back, because we want you to answer a lot
But
more
you need to
questions.
tell us the name of your uncles and your relatives, so they
My uncle was Thomas Griffith, Jr., and his brother, Lloyd Griffith. My Uncle Tom was admitted to the bar about 5 months after I was born in 1932. And my Uncle Lloyd was admitted to the bar the following year. They practiced in what's now called South Central Los Angeles. Their offices were on Vernon and Central. Upstairs, over a shoe store. Other lawyers who were in the same building were Lauren Miller, Sr., Dave Williams, Ivan Johnson, the ones that but there were several lawyers that had offices there.
I'm loving all this history.
You said that Thomas Griffith was the presiding judge of the municipal court.
In Los Angeles.
Los Angeles
Yes.
Municipal Court at the time. Okay.
Not at the time, right? He became the municipal. He was the second judge. I'll tell one fast story.
Yes, sir.
Earl Warren was the governor of California, and he had gone out of town, and Goodwin Knight, the lieutenant governor, was the acting governor. And there had been only one black to be a judge in California. That was Ed Jefferson. Ed became a judge because Ed's wife was married, Ed's sister was married to Gustus Hawkins. And Gus Hawkins was the first black elected to any office in California. He was elected to the Assembly, and he served there. He was very young. He was like 23, 24 years old. And he served there for many years. But at any rate, Ed got appointed because they needed a vote. And Gus told the governor, you appoint my brother-in-law, and I'll give you the vote. So that's how Ed Jefferson got appointed, according to the legends of the community. Ed proved to be an outstanding judge. He was later elevated to the Superior Court. But he was the only one. So then there was word going around in 1950-51 that we needed to get a black on the bench. So eventually there were 3 people, according to legend, competing to be on the municipal court. They were David Williams, Thomas Griffith, and not his name. The third one refused the job. It didn't pay enough. But Dave Williams wanted to be appointed, but and Dave told this story many times. He heard it on the radio that Thomas Griffith had been appointed the second black judge in California. In those days, it was a big deal. It was front page news, obviously in the Central. It was even in the LA Times and on the radio, like I said. So at any rate, that's I always wanted to be a judge, and that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
First, I was wondering, like Vicky, we moved to LA because couldn't find work in Louisiana. My dad. So I came here in 1943 when I was 2, Catholic school, all my life for the most part. I grew up in the housing projects. None of you probably are well aware, Dion probably is, of the Palm Lane Project in John. Palm Lane Project is the site where the Martin Luther King Hospital is today on Wilmington, just south of 105. Those are the projects. And we lived there from 1944 to 1959, almost 1960. I finished high school in 1959 at Centennial in Compton. And from there, went to Compton College and matriculated to Pepperdine when he was on Vermont, not Malibu. Businessman major. I became a banker, hated it from the day I walked in to the day I quit Bank of America, but I hated all that stuff. I was only 22 at the time, but I had a friend of mine who going to law school at UWLA. So this whole thing was really an accident. I had never planned to be a lawyer or a judge. I was a business management major, but I did have one business law course, so I decided to go to law school, enrolled at Southwestern at night, actually flunked the baby bar the first time, outright flunked it. It sat out a year, I thought about going to SC to get a master's degree, went back, passed the second time, finished law school in 3 years, passed the bar the first time, and then I decided, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer. I knew they worked hard. But I was a probation officer, and I loved the job. And then I went to New Orleans and then for the Mardi Gras, to meet back to Houston, met some lawyers, and decided, well, maybe I did want to become a lawyer after all. So I worked for Herman English. That's where I started, English Square Law Firm, and we did some of everything. Then I went into practice with a guy that John mentioned, Marion Johnson, another guy, Billy Harrison. I had a general practice. I divorced everybody up and down Crenshaw and Inglewood. And their brothers and sisters 4 times. I represented the men, Maybelline represented the women. I had a lot of police officers, sheriffs, Inglewood, and they fight over the pensions. So I did that. I did probate, I did criminal and civil. President of Langston 3 years, president of Cable, president of the National Bar, dealing with the state bar, the county bar, the American bar. I was doing everything. I got tired. John kept saying, you got to come be a judge, you need to be a judge, you need to be, no, I'm not ready for that yet. And one day I called John and said, man, I can't take this is killing me. I said, what you guys got going in England? Nothing, but he said, call Compton, because Compton basically had 2 vacancies because Ron Sky, the elder Shazer, who had been commissioners, became judges. So I applied, Irma was one of the, my hiree, one of the hirers, I'm sure, I figured I'd get over. She was a judge in Compton, so I basically became a commissioner at the Compton Municipal Court. I did that a little under 6 years. I was appointed by Gray Davis in 2001. I've only sat in Compton from 1995 to this moment. And I think I have the distinction, and nobody has refuted that, I am the oldest black Superior Court judge in the state of California. No Superior Court judge black in the state of California. I'm sorry?
I said, what about Judge B, you know?
He's tired.
And speaking of history, so it's my understanding, Judge Morrow, you were the 2nd president of Langston?
Yes.
Well, first of all, before we get to that, how amazing to learn about these amazing. Even further back, but at least for Langston this year, the theme is Langston and his family. You can even see from our panelists how intertwined their lives have been since middle school, high school. To this day, they remain family. So I just thank you all again for being here. But Judge Morrow, were you the 2nd president of Langston?
Yeah.
And would you be the oldest living
Of the
president?
Langston Bar
Association?
Yeah. Can I just tell you that?
Yes, please. That's what I want to know.
All right.
How do we get
May I
there?
have a showing of hands? Who knows when the State Bar of California was organized? Anybody? No? Shirley, when was it?
Yeah, because before that they didn't have a.
No, when was it? Before it. The State Bar of California was organized in July of 1901. It was an informal, almost social organization that had no legal responsibility. It wasn't until 1929 that the Supreme Court, which prior to that time had done all of the, run the state bar examination, run the disciplinary programs, turned all of that over to the state bar. which became an agency of the state. That's in 1929. Prior to that time, no black person was a member of the State Bar of California. And at that time, no black person was a member of the County Bar Association of Los Angeles County. The uncle that I just mentioned to you was the first black admitted to the LA County Bar Association.
What year?
1951. All right? So at any rate, I was practicing law, and I had a good friend named Stanley Malone. Stanley was president of Langston. Now, Langston was formed about 1930, there's no record of the time, as the Blackstone Law Club.
1920.
1920? All right, if you say so. At any rate, it was a social organization. It had two major activities. It had meetings at the various lawyers' homes once a month for dinner, drinking, and sometimes gambling, playing cards. At any rate, they changed the name from the Blackstone Law Club to the Langston Law Club, which was about 1940. Do you know when?
1939.
1939. All right. Now, in 1939, became the Langston Law Club. They remained the same. It had no bar activities, no meetings of any moment. It was purely social. 1965, we had the Watts riots. At that time, Stanley Malone had just been elected president. By the way, he served as president for about 3.5 years.
President of which?
Of the Langston Law Club. During the riots, some of the lawyers said, hey, we need to help our people that were being arrested in mass. And so Stanley and I set up, and another lawyer named Wilkerson set up a program where we had lawyers in the jail to represent people that were swept up in the riots. And we did that for I've forgotten how long the riots were. They were about 10 days, I think. But we did that during that period of time. Following that, and understand also, no firm in Los Angeles had ever hired a black lawyer to do anything. They had never hired a black secretary until approximately 1961. Okay? So at any rate, after the riots, Stanley served as president, and he was still president when the State Bar came to me and asked me if I would try to get Langston to become a bar association. Now, prior to that time, the bar, which became an agency of the state in 1929, had the Conference of Delegates, but it was entirely based on counties. The only way you got to be a delegate was that your local bar association had nominated you or appointed you to go to the State Bar Convention. They were changing the form of the practice and the form of the State Bar. They told me they wanted to have the Bar Association more representative of local communities. Langston was selected to be the first local ethnic bar association. It was followed by Charles Houston, by the Mexican American Bar Association, and all of the other ethnic bar associations. We were very, very concerned about it for one very serious reason. We didn't have any members. By that time, Langston had shrunk. I think we had maybe 7 members that were regularly involved in coming to the meetings. The annual Christmas dinner dance had kind of shrunken people didn't feel like being bothered with it anymore. And by the way, all of the professional organizations, and there was a medical organization, architects, dentists, they all had Christmas, holiday, formal dinner dances. So at any rate, Stanley and I discussed it, and we, as I said, we only had about 7 active members at that time. And so we decided to go ahead and make Langston into a bar association. And we didn't even really know what that would involve. So at that time, the Constitution of the Law Club said, literally, that every Negro attorney practicing in Los Angeles County was automatically a member of the Langston Law Club. So we lied, and we put down everybody we knew as a member of the Langston Bar Association. There were black lawyers who totally resented that. We got letters saying, I don't want to be a member of any segregated organization. But we went ahead and we got Langston, and I rewrote the Constitution. It was adopted by the state bar, and we were a bar association. I was the first delegate to the state bar of California from an ethnic bar association. Everybody else was from the county bar, Los Angeles, San Diego, whatever. It was all part of the motion movement at that time, the so-called one man, one vote type of thinking. I'm convinced that the riots brought to the attention of the mainstream bar that we existed. But that's how it came to be. After Stanley served 3.5 years as president, I was elected president, and I served, I think, 2 or almost 3 years. And that was it.
Thank you.
And I think it's so awesome that we have our history right here. Our next question that I'm going to pose to anybody on the panel who wants to jump in is, what were the biggest challenges you faced as a young attorney, and how did that lead to the formation of our orgs, Langston, BWL, etc.?
We heard about Langston. How about BWL? We have 3 illustrious BWL members sitting on this panel, past presidents. So, well, what of you tell us how? A little bit about why and how BWL formed.
Okay, in 1974, actually, Judge Val Spencer had been thinking a while that she thought Langston was really not addressing the needs of the black woman lawyer. And she was very active in Langston, but she knew she would never be president because we were going to have a president of Langston. Really? She decided. I'm telling you what Dana told me.
When was Maxine Thomas president?
That was much later. Much later, yes. You never had a woman president at the time in 1974. They was talking, there was no, there never been a woman president.
So when I was up to become president, you lost the manager.
I got the paperwork back.
Order in the court now. Order in the court. Miss Sherman.
So she decided that we needed to have, as more and more, we were very small at that time, started counting women on your hand. And she decided that we were starting to come into our own, and we needed to have our organization to address our issues that were uniquely different from the men. Because as a black woman, we still, first you're black, then you're woman, so you know, we had 2 things going against us right here. So she talked to Congresswoman Yvonne Burke and said, you know, let's do this. And so Yvonne Burke said, that's a great idea, I'm going to do it. So she contacted Sandy Carter. She had been close to Sandy Carter and told Sandy that what she had in mind is what she wanted to do. So Sandy called me and said, Shirley, let's do this. I said, sounds like a good idea to me. So we went around and talked to all the black women that we knew, who around and said, hey, what about this? And I said, oh, that's a great idea, let's do it, let's do it. So we set up a luncheon at the Medallion Restaurant on Ocean Boulevard, and that was in 1975. And Sandy paid off these bills, we ordered all these bills. We thought we had a whole bunch of people there. Of course, we had a lot of people, but we didn't have an idea that we didn't have as many people as we thought. So we paid a lot of money for the food. But anyway, we came, and we have this picture, and I forgot, we have a blow up of it too, and I forgot to bring the blow up. And that shows what we call our founding members. And we're on the stairway at the restaurant, it's no longer there. And most people who were there, and I have a picture of it with the names and everything, so you can look at that ladies, and see who was there, what we did, we organized. And Sandy was my first president, and Your Honor, here next to me, became my second president. She was our only two-term president because no one else wanted to be president. No, the real reason was that she did such a great job. She was so organized. As a matter of fact, for 2 years, every minute of every meeting, she would organize them with the little prongs on them. And until we went to look up something, just pull out her list of stuff, and you could find anything you could find. And all our records are at the CAM Museum now, and you can go there and look at them on loan. And at some point in time, they may do an exhibit or something, but we deposit all our stuff there, ladies, so remember that, McAvoy. So all your history, all your stuff, just take it to CAM, this McAteer, I think is there, and they keep it for us. And we can take it out on loan if you want to take it out and use it, and then take it back. So if you're looking for some early history, I've always from the early history there. Most of it, I still have a little bits and pieces that I have.
You want to take this box then?
Copies of. So that's the stuff in that box right there. And so that's what we did. And California African Exhibition Park.
And then before Shirley, just to bring back to that, she told me about, we ordered this, our first luncheon, our organizational inaugural thing, and we had all the elected officials in the city and statewide present, and we were all there. I was a brand new lawyer. I think I had just passed the bar at that point, but we overspent, and we didn't have the money to pay the bill. So there we were with this brand new, newly formed organization, African American Community, could not pay our bills. So fortunately, the restaurant was very kind to us, and they let us come back the following month. I want to say
There was 3 months.
They let us come back
about 3 months.
3 months later and put on an event as a fundraiser so that we could take care of the debt. And we didn't have to pay for any additional food or anything because we had so many leftovers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the cocktail sip. Cocktail sip, which is now your premier fundraiser and signature event, started off as a debt paying party. It was like, rent party. And that's how we got our start.
That's some amazing history. Thank you. I wanted to ask of you to tell us about the formation of cable, and then like I was saying earlier, we know due to the riots and segregation and racism and all of those things, why we had to form, but also how did cable form and why is it still necessary today for organizations like AAA, CJO to even start in our current climate?
Well, cable was formed because there was a need to have a statewide presence on the African American lawyers, black lawyers. And ultimately, the whole dialogue for cable started in 1976 at the National Bar Annual Convention in Houston. And the state would have it, the dialogue continued. Two of the primary bar associations that spearheaded cable's formation were Langston and Charles Houston in Oakland. Cable was formed at the airport Hilton Hotel, I believe the name of the hotel, was right there at Sepulveda Century. April of 1977. Irma Brown was there, as was Alan Webster. Irma was the first secretary of cable. The cable was formed to give, first of all, black lawyers a statewide presence and some power from the standpoint of obtaining employment. Also to change the face of the judiciary in the state of California and finally to basically serve the needs of black folks in the state of California. So that was why cable was formed. And there was a need for cable then, there was a need for cable now. As indicated, I was there when it was founded. There were 250 people at the president. I was cable's 10th president, the first black man from LA to be president of cable. But I also when I became a judge, I basically was a legal advisor for any number of years. I'm a life member of cable, and there's a need for cable then, there's a need for cable now, there's always been a need for cable.
Thank you. And just very briefly, AAA, CJO, we talked about BWL, Langston Cable all being formed years ago. Why would it be necessary now in 2017, 2018 to still be forming black law groups?
We are very proud of AAA. There's nothing like AAA in this country. We were formed because black judges needed a voice. And before we were formed, basically judges were divisions and sections, subparts of these bar associations. They had American Bar, the National Bar, and cable. Now, even though AAA was formed in 2017, actually cable, AAA started really in about 2012, 2013 as an ad hoc group for LA Superior Court. I was the only black supervising judge in LA County Superior Court 2006 to 2012. I was the only one for 6 years. And I was the assistant presiding judge, and I was in the conference courthouse. And I could see going to the meetings on a regular basis, the racism, the insensitivity, how they disregarded us, overlooked us, and there was really very little in terms of us really having a presence in the structure of the judicial hierarchy in LA County. So we decided to form, because in those days, all black judges were either criminal, juvenile court, or family law, mainly criminal and juvenile court. Civil was basically folks who wanted to go to jams, the ADR, men that former prosecutors that loved criminals, all of a sudden when they became judges, got interested in private judging. And so we found ourselves kind of excluded from the mainstream. So basically, that's how it all started. And we made some inroads as a result of that. But we also discovered that we were not getting the appointments, just appointments like we wanted to. Cable had been the vehicle to try to get the appointment. What was happening? They changed the way they started appointing judges from the standpoint that everything became kind of instant. So if you wanted to be a judge, you have to pick up the phone, talk to Josh Lewis and these other people. Cable, you had went through this bureaucratic process. You had the president had to call a meeting, and they had to talk to the north, they had to talk to the south. It would take a month or two. By that time, the person was already appointed, and they didn't need cable. So we decided to make a difference. We were basically going to streamline the process and do better than us. Since we were all judges, we thought, who can select, evaluate judges better than judges? Everybody wants to be a judge doing the same thing we've been doing. It was about 20 of us on the committee, so we had 300 years experience. We decided we were going to change the face of the judiciary, not only in LA, but also throughout the state. So we basically it grew from LA Superior Court to a statewide organization. And I will indicate to you now, as a result of that, we were very successful with respect to getting black lawyers appointed judges in the state of California for the Also, as we speak, there are 66 black judges on the LA Superior Court, 11 commissioners, there's 77 black judges in LA County. Any number of black judges in any state. They tell you about Atlanta, and they tell you about Tennessee and Texas. LA County is #1, and there's nobody in second place. And we're trying to organize the ALJs because with them, we might have about 100 something. But currently, there are basically over 200 judges in the state of California. Moreover, we have a black man who's presiding judge of LA Superior Court, a black man who's assistant presiding judge of LA Superior Court. We have a number of black judges who serve in supervised positions, and we have a black woman who's going to run for assistant presiding judge in 2 years. So we think we will have 6 years of black rule in LA Superior Court. We also have a black judicial appointment secretary in Martin Jenkins, who's now on the first Court of Appeals. And we're already working to make sure we get more people in the pipeline, we get more black judges, in the state of California.
Thank you so much to the panelists for answering our questions. These are the questions that Morgan and I came up with in between coordinating our outfits. We want to open up to the audience. What questions do you have?
We only have time for a few, but
All
we
right.
just wanted to make sure, yes.
Marjorie?
Ms. Williams.
So first of all, thank you all for taking time out. This is so important for us to hear and learn from you guys. And so, as an, I say up and coming or whatever you want to call it, rising attorney, what are some of the things that you guys would love to see from us?
We want you to get involved. We want to pass the baton to you so that you can take care of the ball, run a relay, and get a gold medal. Two things will never change. We will always be black, and there'll always be racism. You have to understand your history. If you don't, you're doomed to repeat it. So we want to make a difference. We look upon you to make a difference and make a change. Now, Judge Morrow and Judge Mays can tell you, we were president of Langston, and we didn't have these great galas that Valerie puts together these days. Hundreds of thousands of dollars at these big time hotels. And then when they leave, and like my brother here, Byron, he gets a partnership at Foley. We went right on back to the ghetto. So we basically see ourselves as partners for you, but your responsibility is not only to make a difference, be leaders, but also understand that people in the community that need you. It looks to you for leadership, and you can provide a difference.
Does anyone else want to add anything? Judge Webster said it all.
I would just add that, to what Judge Webster said, that it's bigger than any one of us individually. That adage that it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to keep a community alive as well. And we take so many things for advantage. We didn't have the opportunities that most of you now have. There was no such thing as one of us, maybe two, being a partner in a major law firm. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we met at somebody's house, we would envelopes, we would put stamps. We did all of those things to make it happen. So you have access to things that didn't exist during our time. So open up whatever you have, make it available to each other, and support each other so that when we're gone and you're sitting here talking about what happened during this date and time, that you know each other, that you have a history that you can share with each other and the community and the ones that are coming behind you, because it's not over. It's going to continue. We're living in a time where the climate is not favorable to us. The courts are not going to always be like they are. We look good in LA, but just stay awake. Stay woke. Stay woke.
Because if racism exists, it's still out there, and since we've had this new president, people feel a lot freer that they can express that now, because he encourages that. Some people, they just really do that. And I tell you, I go to court, and you can see it. I mean, every time I go to court, most of the time, there's some little racist something that happens. And I just say, this is ever gonna stop. It's not ever gonna stop. And you have to be aware of it. And a lot of times I think you're not aware of that. You think you've overcome. We have not overcome to the degree that we should overcome, okay? But you just see it so much. I mean, clerks and people, I look at them and they think, I still come to court. Well, even at places where people know who I am, they still want to acknowledge that I am an attorney when I come to the courtroom. You know, they look at me, and I say, okay, sure. So I have a routine that I do all the time anyways, so I don't have any problems or issues with people when I go to the courtroom, you know, because I just announce who I am right away. You know, I talk to the bailiff right away, I look at the court, so he's going to talk that question, we won't say, defendant sit over there, you know. I got that so many times, you know, where's your lawyer, okay? So I go in there now and I announce who I am, but you can see some people, they still don't know who you are when you go to some of these outlying courts. And they look at you and they, you know, you have to go over there, ma'am. I said, I'm an attorney on the case, and here's my card. I'll have my card out to you when I come in and hand it to them. and to the court reporter. The reporter loves you because nobody does that. They go to the reporter, I got my card, they go and say, hey, how you doing? They really appreciate it. And they're writing your records, so you want this on your side. So okay, be nice to the reporter because you don't want something that you think was in there, okay? So you like to be nice to give them your card. So that's, but I'm just saying, it's still there, and I see it when I go to groups all the time, there's always something about it. So just be aware of it, and you know, you try to rise above it and show them who you are. And a lot of times I go in there and I be so professional and everything, and then all of a sudden everybody grinning at you. And 9 times out of 10 I know the judge, because I know all the judges. And they'll come out, the clerk always runs back and tell the judge when you come to court with somebody just doing something over there. They always go tell the judge don't you know, they know you're out there, they come on there. And so they're so surprised a lot of times the judge come out, oh, Miss Evans, how you doing today? The clerk will look around, the bailiff will look around like, oh, he knows her? You know, so you go in there and you just show them who you are with professional attitude and how you treat them, very professional, and that kind of comes at a lot of it. But you know, you just have to understand it's gonna be there, but you just have to rise above and don't let it get you down, because it can get you down some days. You say, hey, I know who I am, okay, and this is not gonna bother me. So just remember that, and just kind of, you know, as I say, always show the positive stuff wherever you meet somebody, whenever you step racing and stuff. You know, don't go to their level. Because if you rise above and smile and say, hey, how you doing? You just start talking to them. You'll be surprised, because sometimes they'll look at you like, oh, okay. And they'll change. You can actually get people to change. You can see they're kind of across some bullshit. You start getting and all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, you know, because they don't understand. They're surprised and shocked. So just remember little things like that. You have to leave it on it.
Rise above. Yes, it just reminded me of something when I wasn't with the founders of Black Women Lawyers, because in '75 when they were founded, I was studying for the bar, right? And didn't get sworn in until '75 later that year. But my first job was with the city attorney's office, and like somebody said, I was in one of the lawyers in the master calendar court, and we dealt with all the cases, right? And one of the things I know, the first week I was assigned to sit there, every lawyer who came in, I'm sitting there where the lawyers sit, you know, and they asked me, when will the city attorney be there? And for a week, I smiled and said, oh, my name's Veronica McDeath, I'm the city attorney. And we did it. And then I started noticing, they didn't ask, I was only men there, and they were all white. They never asked them where was the city attorney when they were sitting there, right? And so after the first week when they came in, I still smiled, and I said, oh, why don't you have a seat and wait for the city attorney? And then they'd be really embarrassed later because they wanted to deal their cases, and they saw everybody else dealing their cases, and then they had to come and talk to me. But anyway, it's a little passive aggressive. I still smile. But the thing that was helpful to me was Justice Dana Spencer kind of took me under her wing early on, and was a mentor and everything. And I got involved with Black Women Lawyers. And it was the first professional organization. I always paid my dues to Langston, but I never really came to meetings or anything, because I loved going to a place with a bunch of women that I could vent and who understood where I was coming from, right? Because these creeps who would do that would later ask you to go out and have a drink. You know what I mean? Yes, okay. Giving you a drink, right? Anyway, so the organizations play a significant role. Right now, I'm so glad, I don't do a lot of bar association stuff. I'm fused from chest to tailbone. I had this big operation in 2007. I was retired for 3 years, and I went back, and that's when I worked at the Children's Court. But she is there as one of the Children's Court lawyers, and she asked me to come, and I was so proud of her that she's president-elect, and Morgan is like my niece. Yes, our families have been friends for so long. But I want to tell you guys, a lot of people don't know about what's going on in the Children's Court. We have the biggest population of any state in the United States in LA County in our court, and they're almost all Black and Latino, right? The other day, one of the few white people who was in my court, the father said, oh, I guess you went to law school on affirmative action. But of course not, so anyway, but those kids need a lot of attention. And one of the things that's happening, and you don't see a lot about it, if the girls were white, you would, but these gangs have found out they can make a lot more money selling girls and selling drugs, and the police don't harass them as much. So we have this huge court that I sit in that's just dedicated to the girls who are sexually exploited. And it is, I'm the mother of 2 daughters. It's the most heartbreaking thing I have ever seen. And I know there are a couple of courts that have a few white people, but not many. But you can't tell me that we're the only ones having problems raising their kids. And I know there's drugs and there's poverty. But one of the reasons I went there was to really be distinguished so I could help those who really needed the help, just like I tried to do in criminal when they wanted me to send everybody to jail, to try to do what we could. It was always through the bar associations that I had helped setting up programs and projects and all the different things I did. So that's a good thing, to talk about these things among yourselves and find something that you really want to be a part of, as well as your profession, and it helps you that move along. But doing something for our community, because they need us as much now as they ever had. Even though they're all the judges we're talking about, we were still lucky to get all of them. It was because Jared Brown, during the years before when we had 8 years of Republicans, we didn't have any appointments, and that could happen again, right? So we've got to work for it. Yes, sir.
Oh, I wanted you to tell us about your First Expressions project you used to run.
Grammar schools, trying to, talk to the kids and get them to the black school in our community. I wasn't racist, I just went to those schools, let them see a judge, let them see somebody, that they can do something. And I realized how very little any of them knew about the system except negative things, the police in their community and everything. And so I started a program that was all the public schools, they brought kids to the court. And there was a nice women's organization that helped out by sponsoring the kids, and I got LA Unified to provide buses to transport them so they could learn about the court system and see it. And that went on for quite a while.
And attorneys went into the schools too.
And attorneys went to the schools and talked to the kids. So we had a lot of good stuff happen for that. Golly, you remember that, huh?
Yeah, I participated.
You did participate. It was a long time ago, yeah.
Oh,
Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions.
When the sports unified, we lost the program. That's what happened.
I'm gonna take a moment of personal privilege. My mama says she is a question.
It's not a question, it's an answer to Marjorie's question, what young folks can do. What you can do is support these organizations. Most of us are life members. I'm a life member of BWL, Langston, Cable, NBA, and AAA-CJO. So that's what you can do to make sure these organizations thrive. The other thing is, you need to join the LA County Bar Committees, State Bar Committees, Beverly Hills Bar, whatever. You need to, as your time allows, you need to be part of every bar association. Perhaps it's in your field, but that's what you all need to do. You need to do both, not just this. You need to do both.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to promote membership. Keep these conversations going.
Follow up.
Those children basically have my point, but I wanted to ask the panel to maybe explain the importance of being active in all these organizations. We all know we deal with limited time, resources, but as I'm looking at this panel, I know I see you all supporting BWL, Langston, and Cable, and AAA-CJO, and I think a lot of other people feel like they don't have the time, or they don't have the resources to be as active as you, as if you maybe have a different strand of DNA than the rest of us. So I wanted, because we do need to replicate this level of participation and leadership, why is it important for us to support all of these organizations as individuals?
Who would like to take that?
Well, it's just real easy. You need to be entertained. Because if you're not, somebody else will make the decision for you. So if they don't hear from you, they will not consider you. And your presence makes a difference.
And as far as research is concerned, I think one of the reasons why, as BWL, we keep our dues low because we know we need to be in all the organizations. So that's one thing we intentionally did at BWL, is keep our dues low, so we can make sure you can pay those and pay somebody else's dues and stay in our organization. So that's something, the other organization, keep in mind before you raise your dues too high.
Carmela waving her hands. I'm stand up because what I see, and this isn't a question, this is a statement. And I'm gonna go Compton on you. All of y'all who work for these private law firms, these 50 things, I became a member of the bar in 1981. Those doors were not open. We'd be at that table who demanded diversity within the context of private law firms, who demanded diversity within the context of corporate houses, because before them, there were no y'all. And if you guys don't step in and fill those shoes, those doors will close, because all of you who are in private practice, you know after 6-7 years, they only allow so many to become partners. And otherwise they will be showing you the door. And if the government, which is where a lot of people end up, those of us in the city attorney, the DA, the public, you know, those are the entities that consistently have taken us because of the work that was put in before with these folks. So that's...
It wasn't consistent. When I went to the public defender's office, there were over 500 lawyers and only 9 of them were black. And it took a lot of work to create the public defender's office that you see today. The excuse was, well, we can't find black lawyers because they're all going to work for the civil firms. And basically, what we have to do is go and advocate. And the bottom line, a group of us met with the then public defender whose employment people had told them that I can't find them. And we said, you know, you let us go out and we will bring them in. And that's what happened. And now you see a public defender's office that's probably 20% black. And they had the first black public defender for several years, who was one of my contemporaries.
Plus, there's one other thing I want to mention real quick is when we started Black Women Lawyers, and a lot of people in the city attorney and district attorney's offices and everything, and all our colleagues we worked with supported us, no matter what race they were. And they said, come out, see everything we had. Okay, so you in these law firms, and a lot of you may be afraid, I sense it, I'm just telling you how I feel, that you don't, your colleagues, your white colleagues or whoever, you don't seem to want them to be involved in the community and what you're doing. And you need to get them involved. First of all, they got money. And the white people get the money and they go in their communities and help their communities out from law firm money. So you guys have to start doing that too. And don't be afraid to ask them to come to our events. I mean, white folks just come to our events all the time. You know, the cocktail sip, everything we had, they show up, you know, and they love it. And so, you know, and you need to, as you say, we gotta all come together, so why not get them involved in what we do? They come and they'll love it. Plus, you know, that helps you when you want to create a program, do something for the community, and you get to get that money for your law firm to come out and do stuff. So don't be afraid to get them involved in your stuff, because you know we need help from everybody. We don't turn it down. So
thank you so much.